Hello one and all, Jasper here, and originally this video was going to be Belwas vs Tormund, but after combing through the books to see what each of these warriors are capable of, I came to a very obvious conclusion. Belwas would wipe his ass with Book Tormund. The show has way better feats and is overall more impressive, and I was considering using the show version of Tormund like how I used the show version of Daario. But I began to realize that there is a wildling that is far and above the greater warrior compared to Tormund. A man who not only bested Tormund himself, but tons of other wildling chiefs who had dreams of becoming the king beyond the wall. Even if the show doesn't give him the credit he deserves, we the fans know just how much of a terrifying warrior he can be. I am of course talking about Mance Rayder.
The freedom to make my own mistakes was all I ever wanted.
Since show watchers are somewhat familiar with Mance Rayder, let's start with him. Rumored to be the offspring of a wildling woman and a man of the Night's Watch, Mance was taken in by the Black Brothers after a group of raiders he was with were put to the sword while he was a child, and would eventually become a ranger in the organization. This would mean that he was very adept in surviving the brutal cold climate beyond the wall, and a skilled rider. But more important in this context would be his proficiency in battle. Given the chances of running into wildlings while scouting, rangers are taught in all sorts of different styles in fighting, and Mance seems to be quite proficient with a greatsword. We only ever see him fight once in the books, and that is between him and Jon Snow. And while I don't rate Jon as high as many others, I can't deny he is still a skilled warrior. In fact, before these two came to blows, Jon had just bested 3 new recruits at once, and obviously, even though recruits aren't exactly the most fearsome of opponents, a 3v1 is almost always impressive. Mance, disguised as Rattleshirt, threw some insults and the two engaged in battle. Mance, despite having the slower weapon, was proving to be faster than him, trading blows and smashing away Jon's shield to splinters. In a desperate attempt to win, Jon tackled him to the ground, though this ended with Mance smashing Jon's face into the ground and telling him if he had a dagger, then the bastard would be dead. Jon seems confident that he would have won if he was armed with a long claw instead of a training sword, though personally, I think he's just blinded by his disgust for the man he thinks is Rattleshirt. I mean, imagine if you thought you were going to kick the shit out of Joffrey, only for him to embarrass you in front of everyone in a fair fight. I would be throwing out all sorts of excuses on how it was bullshit as well. Probably gaslight myself into saying that it was actually Sandor wearing a blonde wig. Though, as mentioned previously, he has other wins under his belt that are arguably more impressive than Jon's fight. We just don't see the conclusion of these. We know he defeated Tormund's Giant Bane, as well as Stir of Thenn in single combat, along with 3 other wildling chiefs who refused to submit to him. So, obviously, Mance's strength, speed, and skill are all impressive. But what about his arms and armor? Well, considering the damage he did with that greatsword, we can let him use that in this coming fight. And for armor, let's lighten the load a bit. While he was wearing steel plate in the training, his usual fit is quite a bit less. Mostly wool or shaggy fur pants because, motherfucker, do you know how cold it is outside? But that doesn't protect him much against a sword or a spear, so he also has some leather as well as ringmail to keep him safer, and caps it all off with a winged bronze and iron helmet to protect that chrome dome of his. Though those massive wings should be taken off and used to protect another part of his body. Maybe his second head. Yet something that speaks even more to his skill at arms would be the respect he has from Qhorin Halfhand, most likely the best swordsman at the Wall, who speaks very highly of the man, calling him the best of the Night's Watch, but also the worst. Mance is almost definitely the most dangerous fighter beyond the Wall, and arguably one of the best in the series. It's a tall order for anyone to be able to take him head on, but if anyone can do that, Belwas has a decent shot at it. Strong Belwas, a massive eunuch gladiator who has spent almost his entire life locked in deadly combat in the fighting pits of Essos, starting off in Meereen before being sold off to Qohor, and finally ending up in Pentos, where Illyrio would purchase him and send him off to protect Daenerys Targaryen, the future city demolition expert of Westeros. Nope. All these years later, and it still hurts to watch that. Belwas is what we would call a genetic monster, who is one of the 3 characters in the entire series who's been described as having arms as big as tree trunks, the others being Gregor Clegane and Archibald Yornwood. However, those 2 are not eunuchs, which makes Belwas' size and strength even more impressive, so I am personally of the mind that Belwas simply lacks the pillar, but still has the stones, if you get what I'm saying. Despite his massive size, his choice of fighting style is very interesting. He fights with an Arak and a small buckler shield, and technically wears armor, a small studded leather vest, but come on, look at this. What the fuck is that protecting, in all honesty? You would think that such a massive man would struggle with this quicker, lightly armored fighting style, but nope, the man dominates. He claims to have never lost a fight, which, considering the leading cause of death for a pit fighter is losing a fight, and he is clearly not dead, I am inclined to believe him. And he is so confident in his ability to dodge and parry in a fight, he lets every single opponent he faces cut him once. Which sounds like 17 levels of bullshit, but the motherfucker faces the champion of Meereen on foot while his opponent is on horseback, kills his horse from under him, then lets him get up so that he can cut Belwas in the fight, only to get his head cut off soon after, and to throw a little bit of disrespect, shits on the guy's corpse and wipes his ass with a cloak. This man is a savage. He has slain Dothraki screamers in the fighting pits, along with lions, bears, Braavosi water dancers, and Westerosi knights. He was formidable enough that Illyrio sent him to protect his golden goose, Daenerys Targaryen, who named him to be a member of his Queen's Guard. And most impressive of all, he has a squire. And do you know who this squire is? Motherfucking Barristan the Bold. Considered one of the greatest fighters in the entire series, with decades of experience in warfare and combat, and this man still realizes that he can learn so much from Belwas. Alright, I'm exaggerating slightly since Barristan was pretending to be someone else, and Belwas was actually kinda pissed when he found out the old knight was lying to him. But there is a quote from this older swordsmaster in regards to Belwas. He knew he could rely on Belwas, should it ever come to swords. Alrighty. Both fighters have been examined thoroughly, and a conclusion must be reached. If these 2 were to face off in an iron throwdown, who would win? Place your bets now, as I'm about to reveal the winner. Drumroll, please. And the winner is Strong Belwas. And this is probably the only time I will pick a guy with no armor beating a man who is fairly well protected. But too many categories tilt the fight in Belwas' favor. For starters, experience. Mance has likely fought and killed plenty of wildlings as well as rangers from the Night's Watch. But Belwas has faced fighting styles and warriors from all across the world and bested them all, so it's nothing new to him. While it is unlikely that Mance has faced any sort of opponent that can be compared to Belwas. He also likely has the speed advantage, since this motherfucker dances around Dothraki, letting them get a free hit in before he cuts them to pieces. And his strength is on another tier. Remember when I mentioned Jon Snow tackling Mance Rayder? Well, imagine if Strong Belwas did that shit. Mance wouldn't have a prey in the world of coming out of that ahead. I don't want to make this sound like Mance doesn't have a chance, because he of course does. The fact he is wearing armor that is good at protecting against slasher weapons like the Arak means that Belwas is going to have to put in some actual effort in wounding Mance. And if Mance gets one solid hit on that colossal eunuch with his greatsword, that's it for him. I don't care how strong you are, a solid hit from a greatsword without armor is going to fuck you up. But at the end of the day, when you have superior strength, speed, and more variety in battle experience, and the only thing you're lacking is debatably constitution, I gotta put money on the guy who makes a living fighting to the death. But these are just my thoughts. Let me know down below if you agree or disagree. I look forward to having this discussion with you all. Until then, be safe, and I hope you all have a wonderful night.